Hi everyone and welcome back. As promised, today I'm going to focus my attention on the most affordable all-in-one unit by HiFiMan, which is called EF499, which goes for $299 US. At the later stages of this review, I'm going to compare it with the EF500, which is by $160 more expensive. Even if this is the most affordable unit by HiFiMan, I believe this is not your regular op-amp based headphone amplifier or chip based DAC, so this is a very interesting DAC-amp combo, and for this reason it might be your very first DAC-amp combo. For these reasons and many others, I decided discarding my audiophile terminology so you can better understand me. So let's check it out. Now, before I dive deep into the nitty-gritty, I don't want to repeat myself too much, especially in terms of looks, build quality, controls, inputs and outputs. So please check out my EF500 review, which I posted last week, because all of that info is relevant for the EF499 as well. In terms of looks and build quality, as you can see, they are looking pretty much the same, so we have the same inputs and outputs, the same controls. The only difference is actually this acrylic front panel versus an all aluminum front panel on the EF500, and of course golden accents on those knobs. That is basically the only difference between two units. On the inside, things are considerably more interesting. Power ratings are very similar. This one provides 4.35 watts versus 4.5 watts in 32 ohms via the balanced output, so these are very similar. And with desktop headphones, you won't notice much of a difference. In the usual fashion, I'm always trying to have a look at the insides of the units that I'm reviewing so I can better understand them. Here is how EF499 and EF500 are looking on the inside. As you can clearly see, there are several changes. First of all, EF499 uses a slightly smaller and less powerful linear transformer. We have fewer discrete components at the headphone amplifier stage, hence getting a slightly lower power output on the EF499. But the biggest difference lies in the DAC section. While we have a beautiful looking and great sounding Himalaya LE R2R DAC modules on the EF500, we no longer have them on the EF499. Instead, we get a simplified R2R DAC section with just several resistors used for the left and right channels. Signal-to-noise ratio isn't that impressive on the EF499. It went down to 99 dB from 117 dB on the EF500, and channel separation now sits at 95 dB versus 131 on the EF500. And I'll explain in a few minutes what all of that means when listening to music, watching a movie or playing a game. EF499 is also equipped with an Ethernet port on its back, so of course it supports Tidal Connect and Spotify Connect, and if you are wondering how all of that is working, this is actually very simple. You just need to connect an Ethernet cable from your wireless router to the EF499, move the mechanical switch on its back to Net plus USB, fire up Tidal or Spotify on your smartphone, tablet, PC or laptop, choose EF499 as the output device from the list, and that's pretty much it. You can use the EF499 in very different setups, in different scenarios, and I'll try to explain all of them to you. First of all, you should use that Ethernet connection on its back. That is basically the main superpower of the EF499, because usually wired streamers, they cost a pretty penny, but that is not really the case with the EF499. For $299 US, we're getting a wired streamer that supports Tidal Connect, Spotify Connect, we're getting an R2R DAC, and a powerful headphone amplifier section that does justice to music lovers and audiophiles, and this is a great starting point in my humble opinion. Secondly, you should use this one via USB connection with your PC or with a Mac computer, so you can use this one for movie watching, for games playing, for music listening. You can install any streaming app like Apple Music, like Qobuz, Deezer, many others. So again, you can use this one for music listening if you want via USB connection. It also has a coaxial input, so if you have a digital transport or maybe a CD player with coaxial output, then you can use this one as a DAC or as a DAC plus preamplifier or as a DAC plus headphone amplifier and start listening to music. Last but not least, you can use this one in a stereo setup as a wired streamer, DAC and preamplifier, followed by an integrated amplifier by a pair of passive loudspeakers, and start listening to music. Sound-wise, although we have a different art wall at the DAC, a slightly different headphone amplifier section using less discrete components, we have a smaller linear transformer. The sound profile of the EF499 is actually very similar with the EF500, with just a few minor things which I'll mention in a second. The sound is what I would describe as soft, as mellow, as relaxing, very smooth, easygoing. It's not trying to offend you in any way. It doesn't have those super strong dynamics, or this one is not very punchy, this one is not trying to deliver some sharp leading edges, strong contours, listening fatigue, forget about all of that. This one is trying to be extremely relaxing and easygoing. The sound profile is also focusing a lot on the mid-range delivery, and it's rolling off portions of the upper treble and a little bit the sub bass, so the sound is actually quite rounded, if that makes any sense to you. Lots of mid-range definition, mid-range weight. It sounds quite sweet in a way, because I hear lots of mid-range that is going forward and not so much trebles and bass. So yes, you can say that it has that milk with honey type of sound that is very easy to listen to long term. If you are coming from a Delta Sigma DAC that uses ESS Sabre silicon, AKM silicon, Cirrus Logic silicon, or any other DAC chips, then this one will feel very different. And in many ways, it reminds me about the sound of my youth, especially if you have around 40 years like I do. So this one will sound like tape, like cassettes, like vinyl. So it's very easygoing, not very focused, not very resolving, not very clear, but at the same time extremely relaxing and easygoing, and it's not trying to offend you again in any way. You don't get a very resolving, transparent sound, so forget about micro detail information. That is not happening with the EF499. But you'll get lots of texture and meat on the bone on the macro scale, not on the micro actually. This one is also not a lightning fast sounding unit, so forget about modern electronica. That is not working that great on the EF499. It has much longer decay, so it works great with all music, with classical, with blues, with jazz, when you can appreciate the longer decays compared to ultra-fast transit response. So this is what you are getting with the EF499. It's redundant talking about resolution in this one. It's redundant talking about fast transit response or about a super big soundstage, holography, 3D sound, because that is not really happening with the EF499. Also, you should not expect Tor paying you a visit, because this one is not a very punchy sounding unit, so dynamics are not fast and punchy. This is not providing lots of slam in the bass, for example. That is not really happening. So again, it's softer and it's mellower sounding than usual. Luckily, we get a very similar headphone amplifier section that I've heard with the EF500. So it was able to drive basically all my headphones on my headphone wall, except for one stubborn headphone, that was the HiFiMan Susvara, which were not that grippy, were not that tight, not very punchy, not very holographic, not very 3D. So it's not really sounding like a high-end headphone amplifier. So sounding very loud and well-driven are two very different things. I can make the HiFiMan Susvara very loud on the EF499, but those didn't sound like I know them to be on high-end headphone amplifiers, especially in terms of punch, control, layering, stage size. So please don't get this one for your HE6, for your Susvara, for your Tungstens, for your Abysses, for your DCA Stealth and Expanse, because this one is not working great with low sensitivity desktop headphones. However, everything else from dynamic to planar headphones, Sennheisers, Beyerdynamics, Meses, Audeses, so on and so forth, worked outstanding with this one. Just take into consideration that this is not a very punchy and dynamic sounding unit, it's soft and mellow, but it works outstanding with entry-level HiFiMan headphones like Sundara Edition XS and under Nano, because it infuses plenty of mid-range bloom fullness and removes that treble excess, and that's exactly what entry-level HiFiMan headphones are needed. I won't talk too much about its dynamics, transient response, resolution and soundstage, because it will not doing justice to all of those words. This is not a lightning fast sounding unit, this is not providing you lightning fast decays, this is not punching in the bass like Usyk, this is not unearthing the last drop of information. Honestly, it's not that impressive on the technical level, and if all of those things are important to you, then I would get the EF500, which I reviewed last week. That one is better in all of these regards. The frequency response is very similar to that of the EF500, so you get a fuller bodied mid-range, you get a slightly weightier mid-range that is screamier than usual. The vocals are pushed a little forward compared to the rest of the sounds, so I can definitely say that most of the focus is being put on the mid-range section with this unit. The bass is not very fast, it's not very punchy at the same time. I'm not hearing those low notes very powerful, so it's not very dynamic. It provides more quantity rather than quality, that is for sure, because the bass is mostly one note. It's not very layered, it's not very detailed, the bass, so you should know about that in advance. The treble is very relaxed, it's smooth, it's rolled off, especially in the upper treble, so you're not getting lots of information, lots of detail in the upper treble. This is a very relaxed sounding unit in the treble. You won't find lots of bite and sparkle in the treble, so treble heads might look elsewhere, maybe a cheap bass solution with Delta Sigma modulators. Those DACs usually have a much stronger treble delivery, a much stronger contour. This one is hazier and it's not so focused sounding in a treble, so forget about those super small intricacies. That is not happening on the EF499. Comparing the EF499 with the EF500 is actually a very easy thing to do, especially with a high-end pair of headphones or with a high-end pair of loudspeakers. Sadly, EF500 is considerably more resolving and provides more micro-level information. There are more things happening in the background and I can simply hear more of my music, something that EF499 is not doing so great. So I cannot hear plenty of nuances and things happening on the background on the EF499. This one is smearing all that detail, so it's smokier, it's muddier sounding in this regard. However, with an entry-level pair of headphones, the difference is no longer so apparent, is no longer so big. For example, with HD600 by Sennheiser or with Apos Caspian, again, I can hear a slight improvement with the EF500, but in terms of resolution as a whole, there isn't so much of a difference, so it really depends on your setup. With entry-level headphones, I do believe that this one is still good enough. Moving on to soundstage, this is where EF500 actually impressed me quite a lot, especially in a stereo setup. Those radios that you see behind me, the TD 2.2, are super impressive in terms of soundstage layering. That is probably one of the reasons why I bought them, because they sound much bigger compared to their actual size. They sound like huge speakers, like some horn speakers, really big soundstage. And that was happening with the EF500, using this one as a streamer and as a DAC, followed by a preamplifier and power amplifier. Sadly, that is no longer happening with the EF499. With this one, those speakers are not sounding like TD 2.2 and more like TD 1.2. So they sound smaller, the sounds are not pushed in all directions, the sound is no longer as deep, so it's not so 3D, more like 2D sounding. I don't have lots of depth to the sound. The imaging is not so sharp, I cannot focus on the sounds flying all around me. So again, in terms of soundstage, this one is not so impressive. But with entry-level headphones, for example, with Sundara closed by HiFiMan, I cannot hear much of a difference in terms of soundstage. They sound more or less the same. I'm pretty sure with Grado headphones, with Grado headphones. I'm not really sure how that pronounces. They should sound pretty close to each other. So again, it really depends on your setup. With entry-level headphones, though, I believe that, again, this one is more than good enough. So it's doing justice to entry-level headphones. So maybe it's okay going with this one. If you want more of that technical performance, a bigger sound, an eerier sound, better depth, this one is better. Last but not least, although we have a very similar headphone amplifier section, and this one provides 4.35 watts per channel, and this one 4.5 watts per channel, so very similar, they are sounding quite different, especially with planar headphones. EF500 is more dynamic, is punchier sounding, it's meaner sounding. It provides more low-end rumble, so more rumble in the bass. It's also tighter sounding with planar headphones. This one is softer, it's not so punchy, it doesn't have lots of oomph in the bass, and this one is not controlling the bass and usually, you know, super fast sounding tunes so well like EF500 is doing, especially with planar headphones and especially with low sensitivity headphones. This one can work with HE6 and with Susvara, this one not so much. This one has the punch and control, this one not so much, so take that into consideration. Overall, it's clear to me that a smaller linear transformer, less discrete components in the headphone amplifier section and a less impressive DAC section left quite a big mark on the final performance, especially on the technical performance, on the resolution, on dynamic range, on a transit response, because this one is actually not so impressive on the technical level compared to the EF500. And if you are coming from EF400, then please don't ever think about changing that one with the EF499, because although you are getting a wired streamer that works great with Tidal Connect and Spotify Connect, you'll be getting less impressive dynamics, resolution, transparency, and ass-kicking dynamics, so please remain with the EF400. Wrapping up, while EF499 won't impress you with its technical performance, it will impress with its feature set, with its power output, with its natural sound signature that is almost impossible to replicate with chip-based DACs and op-amp-based headphone amplifiers, especially at this price point. We still get a killer wired streamer, DAC and headphone amplifier that won't require your annual savings, and as an entry-level unit, it gets a recommendation from the DAC man. You can use it while gaming, movie watching, or music listening. In all of these scenarios, you won't get any kind of listening fatigue, even after hours of non-stop action, and that's why I do believe EF499 has an amazing value attached to it. And if you want a more technical sound that is appealing more to music lovers and audiophiles, then I think the EF500 is a better unit altogether. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed my review. Please consider subscribing if you like this video, and as usual, be positive, listen to more music, and I'll see you around. Cheers!